Good morning all. Today we'll be discussing about antihistaminic drugs. Before starting with antihistaminics, we'll be looking at what is histamine, what are the various types of receptors at which histamine will act, and then finally we'll be dealing with antihistaminic drugs. So histamine. What is histamine? Histamine basically is an autocoid. Autocoid, that is local hormone. Okay. Autos is self, cause is remedy. Okay. So histamine is a chemical messenger mostly generated in mast cells. It mediates wide range of cellular responses like allergic and inflammatory reactions, gastric acid secretion, and neurotransmission in various parts of the brain. Histamine is present in practically all tissues with significant amount in the lungs, skin, blood vessels, and GI tract. It is found at high concentration in mast cells and basophils. It is a neurotransmitter in the brain and it also occurs as a component of venoms and its secretions from insect stings. So synthesis, how is histamine synthesized? Histamine is formed by the decarboxylation of histidine by histidine decarboxylase. Now this histamine is stored in mast cells in granules. Okay. Now what is the importance of storage of histamine in granules is that if histamine is not stored, it will get rapidly inactivated by the enzyme monoamine oxidase. Okay. So that is the importance why this histamine is stored in granules. Now release of histamine. Histamine is released in response to certain stimuli. Now it is not just the only chemical mediator that is released. It, along with histamine, there are certain other chemical mediators which are released in response to stimuli. Okay. So the stimuli for release of histamine from tissues may include like destruction of cells as a result of cold, toxins from organisms, venoms from insects and spiders, and also trauma. So these stimuli are responsible for release of histamine from tissues. Even allergies and anaphylaxis also trigger significant release of histamine. Now this is a diagrammatic representation like how our body will react whenever it comes in contact with any allergen. Here as you can see, this is the initial contact with allergen, like we are not exposed initially to any allergen, and when the first time there is a contact with any allergen, what will happen? These are the B cells. So the allergen will bind to this B cells. So this plasma cells, there is release of IgE antibodies. These IgE antibodies will bind to IgE receptor on mast cells, and now when the person is exposed to similar antigen allergen again, so what will happen? With subsequent contact with the allergen, there is release of histamine and leukotrienes, okay, and other chemical mediators which are released and they lead to allergic reaction. So this is how there is release of these chemical mediators whenever we come in contact with an allergen. Histamine, it acts on four types of receptors: H1, H2, H3 and H4. H1 receptor, basically all these receptors are G protein coupled receptors. H1 receptor is GQ type in which there is increased calcium levels. H2 is GS type in which there is increased in cyclic AMP. H3 is an autoreceptor. It is GI type in which there is decreased cyclic AMP. And H4 is also GI type in which there is decreased in cyclic AMP. So the location for this H1 receptors is smooth muscles, vascular endothelium, and brain. So what is the action at these various sites? Whenever this H1 receptor is gets stimulated. So there's contraction of smooth muscle, there is increased capillary permeability, there's vasodilatation, and the stimulation of sensory nerve endings results in pain and itching sensation. Okay. So this you can very well understand, like when you get any insect bite, at the site of bite you get redness, swelling, and at the same time you have pain and itching. Okay. So this is stimulation of the histaminergic receptors. Coming to H2 receptors. H2 receptors, the location is gastric parietal cells, brain and heart. Okay. So stimulation of H2 receptors will increase gastric acid secretion. As blood vessels is responsible for vasodilatation. It increases capillary permeability, and at the level of heart it increases heart rate and also force of contraction. Okay. H3 receptors, these are the autoreceptors. Location is central nervous system and some peripheral nerves. So basically, it decreases the release of histamine and acetylcholine. Okay, it will decrease the secretion, but it is also responsible for vasodilatation. Now H4 receptors. H4 receptors, these are located at hematopoietic cells. So at this level, it is responsible for chemotaxis of WBCs and production of various blood cell types. So the actions of histamine at various tissues. At the level of peripheral nerves, there is sensitization of afferent nerve terminals. Smooth muscles, basically there is contraction of smooth muscles, so there is bronchoconstriction, then contraction of intestinal smooth muscles. Hypothalamus and at midbrain there is responsible for wakefulness. So you can very well understand like the adverse effects of antihistaminics will be sedation, because histamine is responsible for wakefulness, and so once you give antihistaminic drugs, sedation will be one of the adverse effect. At the level of exocrine glands, histamine is responsible for increasing the secretions. Now, the actions of histamine at the level of arterioles and postcapillary venules is dilatation of the vessels, and thereby there is decrease in blood pressure. It increases capillary permeability. At heart, there is increased heart rate and increased force of contraction. There is increase there. You can see the triple response because of histamine, and there is severe hypersensitivity reaction. So, what is this triple response? The subdermal injection of histamine will cause such a kind of triple response, in which initially you can see there is a red spot. This is the red spot. It is because of direct vasodilatation. It is an H1 receptor mediated action. Then you will get what is called as wheal. Wheal it is basically edema due to increased capillary permeability, and then there is flare response, which is an axonal reflex. In this you can get itching and redness in the surrounding area. Okay, and it is because of indirect vasodilatation. Okay, so this is called as triple response. That is initial red spot, then there is wheal, that is there is edema, and then there is redness in the surrounding area beyond this spot. Okay, which is an axonal reflex. Now the action of histamine on stomach, it is mediated by H2 type of receptors. There is increased gastric acid secretion, and it is responsible for peptic ulcer disease and heartburn. At CNS, there is decreased levels of release of histamine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine. H3 is basically autoreceptor. Now, adverse effects of histamine release. This is itching, urticaria, flushing, hypertension, tachycardia, bronchospasm, angioedema, and increased acidity. Okay, these are because of these actions. Adverse effects are because of the release of histamine acting at various types of receptors. Now, histamine related drugs, basically these can be mast cell stabilizers like cromolyn sodium neurocromyl, H1 receptor antagonist. In this you have first and second generation drugs. H2 receptor antagonists like ranitidine and cimetidine, and H3 H4 receptor agonist antagonists is potential new drugs are being developed. So this mast cell stabilizers will be dealt with in detail in respiratory system when you study about the bronchial asthma. H2 receptor antagonists like ranitidine and cimetidine, this will be dealt with in your GIT when you will be studying about peptic ulcer disease. And as far as today's topic is concerned, that is antihistaminics, will be dealing with H1 receptor antagonist, in which you have first and second generation drugs. So classification of antihistaminic drugs. Antihistaminics, basically these are classified as first generation drugs and second generation antihistaminic agents. Now in first generation you have such a big list. You have diphenhydramine, dimenhydrinate, doxylamine, promethazine, hydroxyzine, pheniramin. All these drugs, these are first generation drugs, but these are again classified according to their sedative property. Like these are highly sedative, moderately sedative, and mild sedative agents. Okay. So those marked in red, these are highly sedative agents. You have diphenhydramine, dimenhydrinate, doxylamine, promethazine, hydroxyzine. These are highly sedative agents. Okay. Next, pheniramin, cyproheptadine, meclizine. These are moderately sedative. You have then chlorpheniramine, cinnarizine. These are mild sedative agents. Okay. So these two are moderately sedative and these are mild sedative agents. Next is the second generation drug, which involves cetirizine, levocetirizine, fexofenadine, loratadine, and desloratadine. So this is the classification of antihistaminic drugs. Now first generation H1 receptor antagonist, basically they block H1 receptor. Okay. Next, they will also block cholinergic muscarinic receptors. Therefore, it will decrease secretions. It will have sedative effect. Okay. It will also block other receptors. This is alpha receptor and even 5-HT receptor. Okay. So they tend to be shorter acting. Duration of action being 4 to 6 hours. Okay. So first generation drugs, they will block cholinergic receptors, that is muscarinic receptors, and alpha receptors and 5-HT receptors. So blockade of alpha receptor is responsible for this postural hypotension, and 5-HT receptor antagonism is useful for its antiemetic activity. So these are used as an adjunctive in anaphylaxis and other cases where histamine release can occur. Okay. So in anaphylactic reactions. Next is anti-allergy. It is used in allergic rhinitis, dermatitis, contact dermatitis. So in various allergic conditions. It is a sedative agent. It is also useful in preventing motion sickness. Motion sickness is like whenever you have to go for a journey, during journey you get the nauseating feeling, you feel okay. That is called as motion sickness. And to prevent the motion sickness, the drugs that are used are your antihistaminic agents. It also has antiemetic property. Okay. Again, that is prophylactic for motion sickness. Then anti-vertigo. Vertigo is basically the spinning sensation, like as if you feel that the surrounding is rotating around you. So that is vertigo. So these drugs are also used as an anti-vertigo agent. It also has some local anesthetic property. It is used in as an antitussive. Tussive is cough, so it can be used even for cough. That is antitussive. Okay, antitussive effect. Now the adverse effects. There is sedation, dizziness, fatigue, tachydysrhythmias, whereas in overdose, this is a rare thing. Then allergic reactions are seen with topical use. Okay, with some topical preparation, there can occur some allergic reaction. Then anti-muscarinic effects, because it also acts at muscarinic receptor, it blocks muscarinic receptors. So whatever anti-muscarinic effects, these will be also be the adverse effects of this and fourth generation antihistaminics, like dry mouth, blurred vision, constipation, urine retention. So these are all the adverse effects. Now the uses, naturally any allergic condition for MSS, for cough, you can use this drug. So for allergic diseases, you have rhinitis, urticaria, conjunctivitis, atopic dermatitis, even in bronchial asthma, then even in anaphylaxis, these drugs can be used. Then again, it is used as an antiemetic, motion sickness, morning sickness, insomnia, in pre-anesthetic medication because it has a sedative effect. It has even also has an antitussive effect, therefore it is used in cough. It is also used in Parkinsonism and for vertigo. Okay. Now for motion sickness and vestibular disturbances, fourth generation antihistaminics are useful like diphenhydramine, promethazine, cyclizine, meclizine, which are less sedative. And for morning sickness, doxylamine, which is comparatively safer uh, compared to the other drugs. So doxylamine can be used in morning sickness. So these are the therapeutic uses of H1 antihistaminics. Now second generation H1 blockers, second generation antihistaminics. Basically we call them as non-sedative. They have less anticholinergic property. Now, though we call them as non-sedative, but still cetirizine to some extent can cause sedation. Because why we say that these are non-sedative? Because they cross the blood-brain barrier poorly. Therefore, they are said to be non-sedative agents. So the drugs to name in this class are fexofenadine, esomeprazole, loratadine, cetirizine, levocetirizine, azelastine, terfenadine. But from this, esomeprazole and terfenadine have been withdrawn from the market because of some adverse effect, fatal adverse effect. So these have been withdrawn. So these are the second generation H1 receptor antagonist. These are selective antagonists of H1 receptors. They have poor affinity for muscarinic cholineceptors. So you get fewer adverse anticholinergic adverse effects. They penetrate the blood-brain barrier poorly, therefore sedation is lesser. However, efficacy is same as that of fourth generation drugs, but they tend to be longer acting with once daily dosing. Now, what I was mentioning before about terfenadine was that it produces fatal cardiac arrhythmias, okay, and therefore this drug has been withdrawn, okay. Now this is replaced by fexofenadine. Now, in general, these agents have a much lower incidence of adverse effects than the fourth generation agents because in these drugs what has happened? They have lesser anticholinergic adverse effects. They cross the blood-brain barrier poorly, so sedation is lesser with these drugs. The duration of action is longer. Now coming to terfenadine and esomeprazole, these were removed from the market due to the effects on cardiac potassium channels, thereby prolonging QT interval, that is, which produced a potentially fatal type of arrhythmia, that is Tossus D points. Okay, and these two drugs have been removed from the market. Now, fexofenadine is the active metabolite of terfenadine. This is available. Now, the uses of this, again, any allergic conditions, and you can use these drugs. These are like allergic rhinitis, dermatitis, allergic conjunctivitis, urticaria, common cold. In these conditions, you can use antihistaminics. Now, the common adverse effects, basically, anticholinergic adverse effects are seen with H1, basically with H1 antihistaminic drugs. Like there's blurred vision, dry mouth, tachycardia, urinary retention, dizziness, drowsiness. Now, overdose of esomeprazole and terfenadine may cause arrhythmias, and contraindications are acute angle closure glaucoma and urinary obstruction. Now, the drug interactions, basically you need to remember the drug interaction of terfenadine and esomeprazole with drugs like ketoconazole, which is an antifungal agent, and macrolide antibiotics. Whenever these drugs were given together, these were responsible for producing lethal ventricular arrhythmias. Therefore, these drugs have been withdrawn from the market. Now, the grapefruit juice also inhibits cytochrome P3A4 enzyme, and this enzyme is responsible for metabolism of these drugs. Now, since these drugs are not metabolized, so there will be higher concentration of these drugs. There is increased levels of these antihistamines like terfenadine and esomeprazole, and then these are responsible for the fatal type of arrhythmia, that is Tossus D points. Now, what are the advantages of second generation antihistaminics? Basically, they have no anticholinergic side effects because they do not block any muscarinic receptors. They do not cross blood-brain barrier, or therefore they will cause minimal or no drowsiness and sedation, which is quite common with first generation antihistaminic agents. Now, since sedation or drowsiness is minimal or not at all with the second generation, therefore they will not impair in psychomotor performance. Okay, so these are the advantages of second generation antihistaminics. Now, H2 antagonists, to name the drugs, these are cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, roxetidine. All these drugs, that is H2 blockers, basically we call them as, these are used in the treatment of peptic ulcer disease. Okay, because H2 receptors are responsible for secretion of acid, and therefore H2 antagonists are useful in peptic ulcer disease. These drugs will be dealt with in the treatment of peptic ulcer disease. So will not be dealing with these drugs right now. So these are H2 antagonists. So thank you. Here we come to the end of our today's topic, that is antihistaminic agents. Basically, we need to understand what is histamine, what are various types of receptors of histamine at which it will act. Then what are various actions, then the drugs and the activity of these drugs. So thank you. This was all about today's lecture on antihistaminics.